Hello and welcome to today's present show. This is Ravi Tangri and I'm here with my co-host Holly Duckworth. Good day, Holly.
Hello, Ravi. Happy Friday.
Thank you. So for those of you who are catching the show live, welcome aboard. If you are catching it on replay, just to let you know where you can get it, you can track it down on YouTube. On my channel, if you could just Google Ravi Tangri, or you can also get the podcast off of iTunes. So you just have to search us up there. We will post it on Facebook with this. And of course, on Holly's page and on my page, we'll be posting the replays of this as well. So you can get there. But if you want to subscribe, there's also a button that's right up there that you can connect with, so that you can make sure you get every show every week as soon as it's ready.
That's a great point, Ravi. We also want to invite people to comment and to share the show with others. If you're enjoying the content that we have here, we would love to expand our audience globally and the conversation. So please, if you're liking what we're doing, you'll see our friend Mikey has posted a little comment on iTunes, and we would love to see more comments there, because the more comments we get, the more that iTunes promotes the show as well.
Yeah, and the way it works, honestly, if what Holly said is right. If you value this, the way things work these days is it's basically, if you found it of value, you know other people who also would. So we appreciate your support with that. Thank you, and thanks to those of you who have been passing the word around. So today's show, Holly.
I think today's show was for me, to be honest with you. When we conceptualized today's show, I think it was all about me. So listeners, if this show connects for you, let me know if you've ever had this feeling. Our show theme today is what to do when you're stuck. And on my Facebook post, I posted, sometimes we're stuck between a rock and a hard place. I had a great picture of that. And then I had another image of, that moment where you accidentally step in gum. Okay, I hope you've never done that. But sometimes life is sticky and messy. So today we're going to explore what to do when you're stuck. We always like to just sort of come to a common definition of stuck. And as Ravi and I were preparing for the show, while those imageries work, we're talking more about an internal essence energy of being stuck. Today's show is about what do you do when you find yourself with low energy. Maybe you're having a hard time finding your passion or your motivation. That alarm goes off in the morning and you just don't want to get out of bed, and that doesn't happen on the first day, but it's the third day, the seventh day, the 10th day. And this is about the longer vision of being stuck. It's hard to get going maybe with your family, or it's hard to get going in your office and the work that you're called to do. Or sometimes stuck for me shows up in another way, which is unfocused. We live in a 24/7, 365 world now, and we've got all of our email and our social media and the work that's calling us. Perhaps it's the writing or the connections. Maybe it's an old school phone call. That sometimes stuck happens when we get unfocused. And so today's show, we're going to explore those concepts, times it's happened in our lives, and give you a whole plethora of tips to overcome being stuck, because we know that we live in a dynamic and flowing world and universe, and we want you to jump in with us into the new flow of what's coming our way as fall rapidly approaches. So what do you think, Ravi?
I love it. A plethora of tools. Yes.
We had fun coming up with tools.
Absolutely. Now, the thing is that when we're talking about stuck, a lot of things that you described, Holly, are individual. The thing is, you can find this in the workplace as well, like a whole team. You can see the energy of a team sometimes just go whoop, and it just, the team that was humming along and moving, all of a sudden it's just not working. And a lot of these things that we're working with here that we'll be bringing to you are applicable there as well in the workplace. So that's the only other thing I'd like to bring into this.
Awesome. Well, as I mentioned, I think the show is for me because I've had a few months of crazy stuckness, personally and professionally. A lot of my life experiences have wrapped up in the last few months with my schooling, and I moved, and I'm changing the dynamics of my business, bringing in some additional products and services. So sometimes stuck shows up just personally. Sometimes it shows up in your business, or you'll hear me say it again. It's all of life. Everything is everything. So for me, if I get stuck in my personal life, I also get stuck in my business, and vice versa. So I had to start shifting what I thought about being stuck to becoming this concept of, what if I wasn't stuck, but I was being planted? And that sometimes we have to look to nature to get out of our stuckness. And I know that, in nature, we have to plant the seed in the darkness, in the quiet. We have to stick it in the soil. And in that being stuckness, there becomes a time to become nourished by other people, nourished by my food, by relationships, by water, by the time to be still. So I would invite people, as you're looking at where you are stuck in your life, just like I had to look at where I was stuck in my life, what if this isn't actually being stuck, but it's a time to be still and be planted in more richness of your life? Have you ever had this stuck experience, Ravi?
Oh, it's called being human, I think. If someone has not had that experience, I'm in doubt. Okay, we've all lived with it, and for me, there's a lot of different types of stuck. It isn't, and at the core of it isn't. It's about energy. My first career, I was in nuclear physics. We are really not this solid stuff. We are energy. And energy is what makes us up. And if the energy is not focused, if it's not aligned, I think we can feel stuck. There are times the stuckness, like once, for example, an example that popped to mind is, it's happened a lot of times, but this one example, the stuckness can also mean, it may be planted, it may also be timing. This may not be the right time. I just thought of, there was a report that I had to develop for a client. I had to write this, and we had a meeting on Friday, and the whole week I was saying, I got to do the report, but I just could not get going. And then on Thursday, the client calls and says, look, we can't make our meeting Friday. Could we meet next Wednesday instead? Sure. Set up the meeting. You know what? By the end of Monday, I had the report done. Somehow, I think intuitively, we did another show on intuition recently. I think intuitively, at some level, I knew that there wasn't any point in doing the report for that Friday. I could have focused on other things. So it's a timing thing sometimes about that stuckness.
I think also it's honoring that it's okay to pause.
No, we can't pause. We're in a busy society.
With the report, Ravi.
Huh?
That's kind of what you did with the report. You had this awareness that it wasn't the right time, and we push so hard in today's world. When I'm coaching executives, and I know you coach executives too, we hear so often, I don't have time for another meeting. I don't have time for the walk. I don't have time for the meditation. And we are so stuck in the doing, we forget the beingness of why we're here and what it is we're doing. So I think sometimes getting stuck is about that, just trying to do too darn much and forgetting the purpose.
Yeah, it's back to that old saying, right? We're not human doings, we're human beings. And it's about how can you be more present. And, a lot of times with my clients, they just think, they come up with, we got to do this, got so much I can't. But when you really drill down, there's not necessarily a whole lot of things that are urgent. They've just got unhooked on or addicted to the urgency that they make it that way. and they feel that it's that way because that's become their comfort zone, if you will, right? And so it's, what is it if you are constantly just stuck in yourself? Maybe what would happen if you took a little bit of time and just stayed present, just did nothing? What would emerge then? You know, is there some insight? Is there something that's happening? Now, something else you brought up, Holly, when we were planning the show, you said that sometimes the stuckness can link to being emotionally or energetically linked to what you want to happen, to the outcome, right? Can you say a bit more about that?
Well, I think it's human nature that an experience, a life, something shows up for us. We have the opportunity to do something. And we set an instant expectation about what that's going to be. And if it's anything different than that, it's less than. And we're so stuck in what our expectation is, we forget to be open to it being more, being different, being better. And in that, we can, in our mind, create a stuckness, a frustration that doesn't have to be there. I have a girlfriend who often says to me, she goes, Holly, how could this be perfect? You know, even in the stuckness and the frustration, you know, over the last 4 months, I've had a lot of life changes. And I would call frustrated or upset, and Holly, let's step back out of this for a second and say, how could this be perfect in some way, shape, or form? And begrudgingly, I'd come up with some, okay, it's time for me to take a break. I've worked really hard. I've earned the right to take time off. Reason it could be different. So we talk a lot on the show about the power of our mind. The thoughts are things, and what we think about, we bring about. So if we're thinking stuckness, then we're creating the outpicturing of stuckness in our lives. And yes, I'm not trying to say that life doesn't happen to us, but as we look at it, how can we look at these opportunities happening for us? One of the stuck moments I had in the last 4 months was I had a dear, dear friend pass away. And it threw me in the depths of stuckness. Suddenly nothing mattered. I didn't want to write. I didn't want to do the show. I didn't want to do coaching. I just didn't want to do this anymore because it just seemed less important. And my mind was creating this stoppage, this stuckness. And thank goodness I used some of the techniques that we're going to share in a little bit in the show to look at those questions. How could this be perfect? How could I move forward in a positive way? I shared with Ravi earlier this week, I watched a great show by a fellow creator, Marie Forleo, and she talked about one of the techniques is getting back into the now moment. That, our society, we're so conditioned to create 5-year plans and 3-year plans and all these things that are way out there, that I think we get so attached to or stuck to those long-term outcomes that if we're not where we think we should be, our mind stops us. Mm-hmm. And I know that that's certainly happened to me as well.
Yeah. And, one other thing I want to touch on before we get into the tips is that sometimes it's not even our stuckness. Science has started to find that the largest electromagnetic field in our body comes from our hearts, and they found there's a heart brain there. And what they found is that electromagnetic field changes based on your emotional state. So what that means, this field can be measured 6 to 8 feet. If you take quantum effects out, it goes mind-bogglingly beyond that, or into account. But just say it's measurable 8 feet out from you. What that means is that electromagnetic field can impact others. So it's just like say if you take a tuning fork and you ring it, and bring it near another tuning fork, what happens to that one if it's of the right frequency? It'll start going as well. So you may have been in the vicinity of someone who's in a really foul mood. And if you don't know how to defend that, that can impinge on you through that electromagnetic field. So your stuckness may even be someone else's. And it's just bringing that awareness in so that you know how to let go of it, right? So that's something else. There's a lot of places the stuckness can come from. And the other thing before we get into tools, you were talking as well, Holly, about vulnerability that it might be calling for.
Well, we live in such an achieving society, and I think it's magnified right now by social media. And I'll use the example of Facebook. For others, you may see this on LinkedIn or certainly Twitter, whatever platform that you're on. But we're posting the peachy keen wonderful life that we have. Everybody only posts, oh, right now it's all the back to school kids. Aren't my kids cute? Aren't my kids wonderful? Or, you're posting all of the celebratory things that you did this summer. Oh, I went on this great trip to the Grand Canyon, or, I just got married. I just celebrated my 20th anniversary. That I think sometimes while we go to media to be nourished, we also, like you said, have to ask that question of, is this really nourishing me, or is it depleting me and causing me to be stuck? Okay, well, if I didn't get to go on the Grand Canyon vacation, I'm not enough. I didn't get to have the anniversary that I thought I'd have. I didn't get to have the experiences that I wanted. But I think we, at this time, are called to be vulnerable in our stuckness. That how I've gotten out of the various challenges I've had out of the last 4 months was being vulnerable enough to pick up the phone, put a post on Facebook, ask for support and ask people for help. And clearly Brene Brown has become the queen of vulnerability with both her research and sharing authentically her story. But I think the more authentic we are in our stuckness, the more we're able to learn and grow, and the faster we get out of that stuckness. So, that might be a tip, Ravi, or it might just be a story, but I think our consciousness right now is calling us to higher levels of connectivity and relationship, both, again, personally and professionally. And the more we lean into that authenticity, or in this case, vulnerability, the more we get to connect. And in those connections, we release stuckness and create a new flow and a new pattern for our life.
And I think, the example of social media is key. I don't know if it's been coined for anything else, but I'd almost call it the Facebook effect, right? Everyone hears all the wonderful stuff. And if you were to say, well, you know what, I am having a really sucky day, you feel less of a person. You don't want to share that. There's a massive peer pressure, I think, that comes into play. So it's that vulnerability to say, you know what, this ain't work. Things aren't working for me. Can I, like I said, reach out for help, use the lifeline, call a friend, right? But people, I think, because they see the Facebooking of everyone, which is all this wonderful stuff, they don't see the fact that everyone's going through their own caca. That's all hidden. And you might think you're less of a person if you were to say, things aren't working for me. I don't know how to find my way out.
Well, that might have been almost exactly the line I used to move through my stuckness. I wanted to share with listeners kind of a couple pieces, and then we'll share some tips as well. And what I ended up doing was I called it recognize it, claim it, tame it, and choose new action. So recognize that you're stuck.
That's step one.
That's step one. Be authentic first with yourself. Forget Facebook for a moment. I mean, you don't have to put it out there if you don't want to, but we have to be authentic and vulnerable enough in ourselves, get out of the churning of the hamster wheel of life and recognize this isn't working. You talked about that with your report that was due. On some level, you had to recognize, hey, wait, this isn't working. For me, when my friend passed away, I had to step out of that and go, wait a minute, I'm stopped. It's okay to be stopped, or it's not, but you have to really fully step in that recognition of the true feelings. We talked a lot about feelings on the show and how we need to give ourselves more permission to feel the feelings in the good times and the challenging times, and certainly in the stuck or any of the areas of gray in between. So that, I believe, is really key to getting unstuck, is first recognizing, owning, feeling whatever you need to feel in your stuckness or the word that resonates for you. That kind of came to step two, which was claim it. And Ravi gave that tip about checking. Claim it either as your own or take the time to claim it and recognize it as someone else coming into your sphere or
Right.
into your experience. Ask. Go ahead, Rob. You have a great tip for how to ask.
Yeah. So the thing is to find out, to check inside, is it yours, right? And that's key. And the one simple thing I've found, this is from a modality called access consciousness. You just ask yourself, you go truth, and that's, saying that, it triggers your unconscious to stay true. And your unconscious, like a 5-year-old kid, it just needs little cues like that. Truth, who does this belong to? And if you get a sense of lightness, what that is it's not yours. And if it's not yours, is a really simple tool from Access. You just say, return to sender with consciousness attached. Boom. And it's amazing. It just sort of whoosh, clears off. It's like your mind goes, oh, this wasn't mine. You can have it back, Mr. X, right?
You can have it back, Mr. X.
Right.
Yes, you can.
So if you ask truth, who does this belong to, and you still get a sense of heaviness, then it may be yours. So then you proceed with the checklist that Holly identified. So step 3.
So step 3 is tame it, and lots of strategies for taming it. Go take a walk. Get your body moving. Move your body, move your mind. Maybe you tame it with a meditation. Take some time to breathe and visualize what you want instead, how you're going to renew your connection to this thing. Maybe you go for a massage, again, moving that cellular structure in your body, trying to get any stuck energy out. I was telling Ravi before the show today, I had the honor last night of doing a John of God crystal bed. As a chakra rebalancing modality. We have friends who do Reiki. We have, lots and lots of different ways to move the energy within your body. And just the simplest one is, get a glass of water, take a walk, get yourself moving again, and let yourself share your best self. Any other thoughts on how you tame it or how you move the energy, Ravi?
Well, I mean, you talked about taking a walk. Like for me, being near water is incredibly healing. Like I don't even have to walk. Like wherever I live, I find this spot that's by water. Usually there's a nice big rock. And I can just sit there, and just sitting there by the water, somehow it just heals me, it nurtures me, and I feel better after I leave. There's an old trick of you take a walk. And if, what happens is a physiology when you're feeling down, when you're stuck, right? You hunch over, your head's down, so on. There's also physiology when you feel good. So if you take a walk, pull your shoulders back, look up and smile. You may feel stupid, but who cares? And you just take a walk like that and make sure you don't trip over anything while you're looking up. But you will feel better. There's a way that your body shifts your mood just by how you hold yourself, right? You can't stay in a depressed mood if you do that shift. So those are some of the simple things about taming it.
Oh, come on, Ravi. I was hoping you were going to say dance.
Oh, well, hello, dance. Yeah, that's my thing. It's dance, right? I love to do dance. And for me, when you're dancing, you can't think about anything else. Everything else goes away, right? Because as a follow, you have to be there to be able to follow what the lead's doing. As a lead, as what I'm doing, I'm constantly choreographing the next. How do I express this song and so on and so forth. So yeah, of course, dance.
We haven't talked about it, but I'm putting it out to the listeners that when Ravi and I do a live show, we will do a show all about dance. I don't know when it'll happen, but I'm planting the seed out there. We're going to do a show about living and leading and what we learned dancing at some point in the future. Are you in?
I'm in.
Okay. So step number 4 is choose new action. And, back to the Marie Forleo show, she said, let's not get so focused on the long term, but we need to come back to what's that one simple thing you can do today. I'm going to make one phone call. I'm going to send one email. I'm going to reach out to one person. I will send one letter that, for me, I'm going to write one article or one blog, one chapter of a book that, we look at these famous people or we look at this big Facebook social media presence or all these things that these people have that might get us stuck. And yet when we step back, all of those things happen by just one simple action followed by another, followed by another. So I think if there's one tip in terms of getting unstuck, I would say it would be just choose one small new action. You do that every day and you'll be amazed at how fast you get unstuck.
Yeah, and I'd build on that by just doing some checking in of, our last show is about intuition. You can use that heart voice to ask yourself, is this the right action? Is this the right time? You can also change things up, because you can get stuck and you can get anchored into a certain mood by being in a certain place. Change where you're working. Just move a desk or go to a different place. It may open stuff up. Take a break. I mean, I don't know how many times I have gone and people say, oh, I don't have time for a break. I don't have time for lunch. And I challenge them to just do it for 1 week. Just take breaks, take lunch. And they are blown away every single time that they're way more productive by taking time away and taking a break than just working through, things like that. You said about focus on one thing. Another thing is break it down into smaller steps. Don't think about the, big elephant, just one bite at a time, right? That sort of thing.
Absolutely. We've both written books, and that's a great example. How do you eat the elephant one chapter at a time, one sentence at a time? You're stepping into a boardroom leadership. Oh, it's a whole year commitment. No, it's the September meeting, and then the October, and then November, and before you know it, the year is behind you. And
yeah. And then there's, things I can't stress enough, to call a friend, have someone there that's, use that lifeline that if you're feeling stuck, you can go and you say, look, we're going out for a beer. We're going out for coffee. I am going to vent. I'm going to dump, and you're not going to solve my problems. You're just going to sit there and smile. All right. And then you can do that for them at some point. That's huge. And if you can't access your friend, you can do a venting journal, write it out, and then rip it up and let it go. It's huge.
Well, and I would add too, Ravi and I both have executive coaching practices. If you don't have a friend, or you don't feel comfortable making that phone a friend kind of thing, Ravi and I are here. We would love to, set up an executive coaching session with you, or a training session to support you in the path and the journey that you're on, because we believe in the highest and best for all of our viewers and all of our listeners, and we want to be able to support you as well with our energy and our tools and modalities as well. So feel free to find us, hollyduckworth.com, ravitangri.com. Again, we're easy to find. So Ravi, think about what the next show is going to be?
Yeah, well, I think we better get into that, because the whole series of shows in September, it's really kind of neat. It's going to be drawn from a particular book that you brought to my attention. And we're going to start off with diving into how do we deal with change? How do we deal with endings? Yeah,
Ravi. So the next show is going to be on September 2nd. And we're going to invite our listeners and our watchers to join us in a little book club, September Back to School Book Club. I found a book, it's called The 5 Things We Cannot Change and the Happiness We Find by Embracing Them. And it's by an author, David Rico, and looks just kind of like this cover. By Shambhala Press. It's easy to find on Amazon. We've talked a lot about change. We've talked a lot about stuckness. And I think a lot of people this fall are overwhelmed by the changes. I've got a lot of friends changing jobs, changing roles in leadership. Professionally, we've got a lot of kids going back to school. And as I was sitting with this book and really, really understanding why I thought we should do a deep dive into it, I realized that we can navigate change easier if we accept it is as it is, and the things that we know are not going to change. And I think David Rico does a really great job diving into those things. So for show number 1, it's really connecting to the fact that everything changes and everything ends. And, you know, sadly, I have a lot of friends right now that are navigating hospice choices with family and friends that are leaving. We're navigating the grief and the loss of changing jobs, or the child going back to school. So we're going to talk about this book, 5 Things We Cannot Change, and the happiness that we have found by embracing them. And I am excited and delighted to share that David Rico has agreed to be on a future show. So get your book now. Read along with us. We're going to read kind of a chapter or a section each a week in the month of September. And if you're not a big avid reader, just join along anyway in the conversation. And we'll have David on near the end of the month.
Great. And I think that's going to be so much fun. So once again, you can subscribe just by clicking the link up there. Also, you can subscribe to our podcasts on iTunes. The link will be down below the video on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining us. And we will, oh my gosh, next show is September. This year is flying. We'll see you then.
Show number 8.
See you then.
See you then.